Hey guys, welcome to the channel. As you see in the thumbnail, what if Issei married with Medusa? Before I start, please do support for more awesome content and subscribe my channel and like this video. Though support and follow the Nefarious doctor for writing that awesome fanfic, and also make sure to comment on this story, link in the description. Let's start this video. Young man with short red hair and wearing a plain white shirt with blue sleeves and jeans was waiting outside the station for someone. This person was going to be rooming with him at the inn and help him out. If I remember correctly, according to his file, he is a pervert, so I'll have to warn Sakura about him, but he has a kind heart and personality. He's kind of like me, he tries to help others, and when they ask if he could do something for them, it's dying by a harsh situation or committing suicide. That's just dark, even I wouldn't wish that on anyone. And apparently, he's a loner. These two idiots seem to abandon him all the time when caught, parents still love him, and that's about it. I still can't believe Taiga even got him a job. It amazes me what she can do when she calms down and doesn't try to strangle me for food. A picture of a chibi Taiga working as a serious teacher appeared in his head, speaking with authority and waving her ruler in the air. The picture disappeared when he heard the train pull in and stop. He saw a few people come out of the station until he saw a teen with brown hair and eyes. He had a rolling suitcase with him and a pair of sunglasses sitting on his head. It almost looked like he was going on vacation. Sherm shook his head at the side and waved at him. The brown-haired teen saw this and looked at the photo, before seeing it was the same person and ran to him. Hello there, name's Issei Haidu. Former resident of Kuo City, and I'll be rooming with you for the rest of the summer. Sherm was surprised by his mannerisms before introducing himself. My name's Shermamiya, and I look forward to working with you. Just a few house rules. 1. No pervertedness in the house. 2. You'll be working a part-time job and doing your schoolwork. 3. You'll help around the inn. And 4, welcome to Fuyuki City. Issei nodded and shook Sherm's hand. I accept. I'll do my best to help. I know I don't look like the sharpest tool in the shed, but I'm not stupid or a jerk. You need help, I'm willing to lend a hand. Sherm likes his new roommate's attitude and led him to the inn before giving him a tour of the house and ended with his room. Issei thanked him and put his stuff away before pulling out a photo with him and his folks before saying, I'll make you proud of me. I'm sorry for the embarrassment I placed on you. He also saw his deck that he received in a package a few days ago before coming to Fuyuki City. Flashback. Issei just heard his parents were going on a cruise and decided to send him to another city where he will be living with another resident. Wait, I'll be in another city for summer. But why? His parents looked at Issei, and his mother took his hand and said, son, we love you and we hate seeing you alone with no friends or even have a girlfriend. Those two, Mitsuda and Motohama, aren't your friends. Real friends don't betray another when caught, and we don't want you to waste another year of Kuo Academy. The man you'll be rooming with is working part-time and a great person. Since you're already on a 3-month vacation, this will be perfect for you. Just please know that we do love you and we just want you to be happy. Please understand. The father placed a hand on Issei's shoulder and said, I know that you got your pervertedness from us, but we wish for you to have a good future with a wife and some children. Please forgive this old man. Issei was shocked but realized they were right. He only had those two as friends, and they never really hung out if it wasn't for any perverted reasons like watching X material or reading X magazines. Also, it would be good to at least get a girlfriend. He looked at his folks and said, alright. I'm in. I promise to make you proud of me. One day before leaving to Fuyuki City, Issei was preparing his suitcase and made sure everything was in there before his mother came in holding a package. Issei, a package came for you. Did you order anything? Issei shook his head. No, I don't remember ordering anything. Are you sure it's addressed to here? His mother nodded and pointed to the address. It says it's addressed to you. There's no return address, but your father already checked and no bombs inside. Issei looked at the box and opened it carefully. Once opened, he saw a deck box and wondered, what's this doing here next? Why was it sent to me? He thanked his mother, then she left Issei to his devices. Once she left, Issei opened the box and saw that there were 7 cards and each of them had a picture of a character. The first was a man wielding a spear. This one was Lancer. When Issei touches it, he saw a man with a blood-red spear, a green-haired woman in a forest with a sad look on her face, and a blonde-haired woman with a double-edged sword. Issei shook his head and went to the next card, unknown to the Lancer card glowing brightly. The second was labeled Archer. When Issei touches it, his vision is clouded with a picture of a catgirl with green hair and running in a foot race, and then switches to a woman with white hair wearing a white outfit and wielding a golden bow. The vision disappeared and Issei went to the next one and didn't notice that this card flowed like Lancer. The third was labeled Saber. When Issei touches this card, he's brought to a battlefield and sees a blonde woman wearing a red knight's armor fighting another blonde woman in blue knight's armor. Then a fox girl wielding a sword. After that, a vision of a dark-skinned girl wielding a rainbow sword looks in the distance with a look of indifference on her face. Issei never saw the card glowing as he moved to the next card. The fourth was Castor. His thoughts were brought to magic warriors, but as soon as he touched it, a pink-haired girl came into view with a sad look on her face. The vision then changed to Egypt with a dark-skinned woman wielding a staff, and a large mirror with spirit surrounding it was behind her. Then it finished with a black-haired girl with a Maiko outfit and wielded a staff with rings on them. The fifth was Assassin. This card revealed him being back in Egypt, staring at a woman with long green hair and a golden serpent behind her. It changed to a little girl running in the streets wearing a cloak and had daggers in her hands. Then the image changed to a purple-haired woman with big eyes and wore a very seductive attire, and another person appears next to her in a black cloak with a stump for an arm. The sixth was Rider. The visions start with a pink-haired pirate woman flying on a ship and firing her cannons on her enemy. The next one revealed a woman in priest's clothing, speaking with her hands clasped together as a dragon approached her. The final image is of a pink-haired girl wearing a white coat riding a carriage and holding a whip in her hands. Issei shivers at that before moving to the last card. The seventh and last one was Berserker. The first person was a girl wearing a British uniform and had pistols in her pockets. The second was a girl was in a wedding gown and had a giant staff in her hands. The last one was of a white-haired woman, covered in armor and had a chain connected with two large spike balls, one on both ends. After that the images vanished and Issei was back in his room. He didn't know why, but the cards felt like they were calling to him. He then decided to keep them and hopefully one day figure out what their purpose is and why he was given them. Little did he know he would find out soon. Then flashback, after dinner, Sherm and Issei were getting ready for bed. Taiga stayed and talked with Issei about his job. So you're going to be a sales associate where you'll start with learning the ropes and hopefully get better soon. This company works with video games and I thought you'd really like it since you're a teenager and you look like a gamer to me. Issei was surprised at the position, but a question was bugging him. Mrs. Taiga a hand stopped him. Call me Taiga. Issei sighs and says Taiga, how did you get me the job? I'm not ungrateful, just a bit shocked. Taiga smiles and said the owner of the company is an old friend of mine and she has been needing a teen's perspective, so I told her about our new resident and she asked me if I could offer him the job. I said yes, you would take it. Praise me for my kindness. Issei and Sherm, who was listening in, sighs at the teacher's behavior. Before Issei said you're the best. Thank you. Taiga smiles and ruffles his hair. Good, now it's time to get some sleep. You'll be meeting with her in the morning at 9:30 am sharp. She left in a flash, surprising both males with her speed. Issei got up from the bed and looked into the sky before saying, I do wonder how this summer will be. Fun and exciting or boring? Guess we'll find out soon. He then crawls into his bed and turns out the lights. A brown-haired, twin-tailed girl was in a room, standing in the center of a strange circle and saying to herself, now the time for the summoning. Issei was in his bed sleeping until he heard his alarm clock wake him up. Beep. 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 The off button was touched by a hand from the sleeping child and said child groaned before climbing out of bed. Issei shook his head a bit and walked to the bathroom, then brushed his teeth, washed his face, and brushed his hair to a more tame hairstyle. Issei was a little sleepy but now awake as he made his way back to his room and got his clothes on for the first day of his new summer job. He heard a loud yell from the kitchen and ran to the room to help. He opened the door only to see Sherm and Taiga resting each other and the purple-haired girl smiling with her eyes closed as if this was a regular thing. Issei scratches his head at the sight before saying good morning to everyone before grabbing a bowl and got some of the soup before blessing it and eating his breakfast. He glanced and saw two bentos on the counter. One must be for Taiga, that woman could out-eat a hungry dog. The purple-haired girl stares at him and smiles at him before introducing herself. Hello, my name's Sakura. I'm a good friend of Sherm and I hope we can get along. Issei, for some reason, saw the light of the room enhancing her beautiful purple hair and eyes, but was brought out of his thoughts by a pair of fingers snapping him out of it. Issei blinks until Taiga has a smirk on her face and says be careful Issei. Sherm will get jealous if you try to take his girlfriend away from him. Issei looked at Sherm and Sakura, both of them blushing a storm, until Sherm said we're not dating. We're just friends. Sakura agreed but looks a little hurt by the statement. Issei sees this and made a vow to get the two together. He could see how much she cares for him and vice versa. Hell, they acted like a married couple already. He heard a laugh in his head as he made this vow. Taiga looks at the clock and in 3 seconds grabs her bag, says goodbye to everyone, and rushes to school. Crap. I still have tests to grade for summer school. Good luck Sherm and Issei. Issei was surprised at the woman's speed and asks is she like this every day. Sherm and Sakura look at each other and said all the time. Issei laughs a little until he sees the clock and how it's 8:45 am and his job starts in less an hour. He quickly finished his meal and was about to leave until Sakura said wait, you forgot your bento. Issei was surprised by the girl's kindness because the only woman who was this kind to him was his mother. Would you make me one? Didn't Sherm tell you about me? Sakura just smiled and said, I see you're a kind person at heart and I do hope we become good friends. She then hugs him, which surprised him because of the girl's kindness and warmth from her. It just felt like any man would be lucky to have her. He looked at Sherm and gave him a thumbs up and mouthed, she's a keeper. Nice work. Sherm blushes and returns to his meal. Issei says goodbye and runs to the station to catch the 9 AM train that can get him to his job quickly. He barely made it and was able to find a good seat before looking over his belongings. Alright, wallet, check. Phone at 100% battery life, check. Bento, check. Alright, everything's here and now to relax until I've reached my destination. He relaxed in his seat and saw the city behind him. Time froze as he saw two people stand out in the crowd. One was a girl wearing a red dress with a twin-tailed hairstyle, and a bit far from her was a little kid with white hair and a purple dress with a big white hat like the British soldiers. The two looked at him like they could see him. He was a bit surprised until time was back to normal, and Issei couldn't help but wonder at the girls. Who were they? Why were they looking at me? His thoughts were disrupted by a voice saying Central Fuyuki City, now approaching. Issei saw the title and thought, my stop. He got up and grabbed onto a handle above him and waited for the train doors to open. He glanced at his phone and saw that it was 9:10 AM, which meant he still had 20 minutes to go. The door opened and he ran out without bumping into anyone. He looked at the address and found a city map next to the station. He found his destination and sprinted to his workplace without stopping. I can't be late on the first day. I need a boost in speed. Boost. He heard that word and was surprised at his speed until he saw his workplace just ahead of him and stopped at the door to catch his breath. Man, what was that? I've never sprinted like that unless I was running away from the kendo club. Later, right now I got work to do. He opens the door and saw a brown-haired twin-tailed girl with a childlike body but assets the size of an adult's, wearing a magic girl outfit. She quickly jumped into Issei's arms and said, hi my name's Magical Girl Levi Tan. Starting for the rest of the summer you'll be working her with me, testing all of my newest games and ideas. I hope we can get along well. Issei was taken back at his boss's personality but decided to act as formal as he can. Hello, my name's Issei Haidu. It's to meet you and I look forward to working with you. Levi Tan stared at him and hugged him while nuzzling her face next to his cheek and said, oh. You're so cute with those innocent brown eyes and that smile. Also, acting so formal makes you even cuter. Issei wasn't sure whether it was a compliment or an insult but decided to get to work. I'm sorry for sounding rude, but if you don't mind I would like to know what I'm going to be doing here. His boss looked at him and dragged him to her office before sitting in her chair and said, well, you'll be my assistant. You'll be working by my side and help me with anything I need. There's also a game that I want you to test. In a way, I'll be a gopher kind of guy. Get the papers, the coffee, all that jazz. She liked her new assistant and said yes, but I should warn you we're a little different than any other business. Know that I am your boss but also your friend. If you need to talk to someone, know I'm here to lend an ear. Issei bows and says thank you. So when do I start? Levi Tan said right now. Oh, and by the way, my name's Seraphol Leviathan. Remember that? Issei nodded before following her. Seraphol introduces him to everyone and shows him the different areas of the workplace. The dining facilities, the workstations, the front desk, and explained the benefits from working here. Issei was ecstatic and asked for his first assignment, which earned a few points for Seraphol, seeing his determination to do a good job on his first day. She brought him back to her office and shows him a slideshow. Now video games and superheroes have become very popular over time, and so we decided to make a game that combines two things that teenagers and adults love. Virtual reality and fighting heroes. This games will allow others to be in a fantasy world and fight monsters, collect rewards, and make their character into the strongest hero or villain. The game's called FGO or Fate Grand Order. Issei liked the idea before asking how would the VR system work. She grins and pulls him to a gaming chair that has a helmet attached to the top of the headrest. She walks over to it and says you'll be sitting in the chair and the helmet will scan your body and face to imprint your ID. Each helmet will have a different ID number, so no one can use or take them from someone else. The helmets will only work for that one particular person it's scanned. You move your character with your mind in the game and it automatically saves the info that was in the game for a month. There's also a URL clock that you can use in the game so you can keep an eye on time outside of the VR. At the start, the game Slinky allows you to choose one character, but there's a special event item you can find that allows you to change classes, but since you're beta testing it, you'll automatically receive it, so have fun with it. Issei sits in the chair and feels the helmet sit on his head, and his body instantly relaxes as it scans his face and his eye to register him. The screen is blank but pops up with a box asking would you like to start a tutorial? Yes or no? Issei mentally said yes. And the yes option was selected. It brought him to a room where NPC was waiting for him and said welcome to the hero's training arena. Now first select your class. Oh wait. You already have a special item. This item will let you use all 7 classes. Would you like to customize them to your liking? Issei replied yes. Serafal was observing how Issei was beta testing the game before heading back to her office and began her paperwork for the day. She looked at Issei through the security camera and said, I know you're special. I wonder, will you use your power for others or will you crave for more power? At Fuyuki High School, evening, Sherm was asked to do some maintenance on the AC units so they would be ready for winter, and being the kind guy and hero of justice he is, he accepted it. People may call him naive and a fool, but that's his dream and no one will stand in his way. He is curious about Issei's place of work and how his first day was, so he wanted to hurry up and get home before Issei did so they could talk. Little did he know that both of them would meet someone new tonight, and it was in a good and bad way. Fuyuki High rooftop. Rin Tosaka was standing on the roof of her school with a man, dark-skinned and wearing black armor with a red trench coat, was standing next to her. Archer, do you sense that presence? The man named Archer turns to the school entrance and senses a presence similar to a servant. I do. How should we approach this? Rin glances and says, go to the servant and see what class they are, I'll catch up as fast as I can. Archer nodded and vanishes into thin air. Issei was walking to the school because Sakura asked him to. She said Sherm would probably stay too late at the school and he would need some help leaving, so she asked him to take him home for her. Issei agreed because he was eager to talk about his first day. He approached the gate and was walking to the archery club. Sakura told him where he could find him and noticed that the lights weren't on. He saw the bow and played with it a bit before pretending to shoot it. He suddenly saw the forest. He heard a laugh and turned to see a girl with green hair and cat ears. She looked at him and waved hello. He waved back and asked, who are you? The girl adopted a sad look and from the looks of it was disappointed by the question until the vision disappeared from sight. Issei was back in the archery club. Issei was suddenly caught off guard when he heard a bow shooting an arrow. He dropped to the ground and rolled behind the targets. What the hell was that? Archer was surprised that the servant dodged, he must have good instincts. He said to himself before moving inside of the club room and had 2 swords in hand, one black and the other white, and looked for the servant. Issei was frightened until he saw that the intruder was away from the door and saw how he could bolt it until Archer said, you know, for a servant, you're pretty cowardly. Are you an assassin or are you just a new servant in the war? Issei was caught off guard because he couldn't understand what this guy meant. Servant, assassin, what is this guy talking about? He saw the door and bolted to it while holding the bow from the archery club and had an arrow with him. He ran to the school as fast as he could. Alright, once I make it to the school I'm safe. He almost made it to the school if not for the swords being plunged into his back. He turns and sees Archer without his swords and his arms out like he threw them. He had a look of dissatisfaction on his face and said, are you really a hero? You're literally more of the cowardly type and yet you have the aura of a hero, what are you? Issei fell to the ground on his legs and bled. Is this it? Is this really the end of me? I never even had a girlfriend. I love my job and want to continue working there. I don't want to die. My parents would be heartbroken by hearing this. I swore to become better and I don't know what's going on, but I can't just die here. He looked to the sky and put his hands together and prayed, dear God, please forgive this soul for being a sinful one. I ask for your forgiveness and to stand up once more to see my mother and father. He sees Sherm, Sakura and Taiga. I want to be with them again and have dinner with them. He looks at Archer and said, please give me the power to stand on my own 2 feet. In Jesus' name, amen. He clutched his head as an image of a red dragon and the catgirl wielding the black bow appeared. They both looked at him with a small smile and the next thing he knew was that he would be a force to be reckoned with. Archer started to walk away until he felt power explode from the dead servant. He turned and saw the swords dissipating from his back. The boy was standing up and he glared at Archer with an angry look that scared him a little until he saw an illusion of a girl and a dragon behind him. Issei pulls a card from his pocket and says, include Archer. Green energy exploded from around his body and covered him in a warm aura like it was healing and helping him stand up. He looked at his arms and saw that he had a metal gauntlet on both hands that covers his hand to the middle of his arm. Picture Ember Celica from RWBY. Issei pulls out the arrow from his person and a black bow is summoned in his hand. Issei loads the arrow and pulls it back. As he did this, green wind started to blow from around him and a voice was heard saying boost. The arrow was glowing red. Archer looked at the arrow and summoned his own bow and pulls back an arrow of his own before launching it at Issei. Issei looks at the arrow moving slowly and he says, Goddess of running Atalanta, guide my arrow to my target. The image of the girl appears next to him and places her hands on his own and guides him to shooting the arrow. The girl said, shoot now, my emperor. He did. The arrow flew and the wind from the arrow blew away the arrow from Archer off course and continued its path. Archer was so surprised that the arrow hit him head on. Issei decided not to stick around and ran to the school. Once inside he saw that he now has a black bow and a pair of gauntlets on his person. He looked at them before saying thank you God. He cried a little before running to find Sherm. Outside of the school, Rin caught up to Archer and saw how he had an arrow in his shoulder. Archer looks at the spot where Issei was before saying I don't think he's a servant. I believe he's an anomaly. Rin was surprised by this fact before tending to Archer's wound. Issei would expect a visit from her soon. In the school, Issei saw Sherm running away from the area and stopped him. Sherm, you okay? Sherm stopped and saw Issei before catching his breath and said, did you see a crazy blue-haired guy wielding a spear? Issei shook his head no and noticed a blonde woman in blue armor was next to him. The image of a similar woman appeared before him, but this one had red armor instead. He shook away the thought and asked who's this lady? Sherm looks at the girl and says she calls herself Saber and says I'm her master. Issei was surprised before remembering what Archer said before looking out the window and said Sherm, I think I know someone who can help us. Sherm was puzzled until he looked out the window and saw into Sokka. You know her? Sherm nodded and saw someone standing next to her. Who is that? Issei answered for him calls himself Archer, but the weird thing is this. He prefers to use swords more than a bow. The woman named Saber said I suggest we retreat for now. Issei and Sherm nodded before leaving through the back unknown to the spy observing them. The blue-haired man wearing skin-tight armor had his spear behind him and observed the fight go down. Gotta say, I'm looking forward to fighting that kid with the gauntlets. This is gonna be fun. He vanished into the night. Sherm, Saber and Issei were able to get back to the inn and relaxed once they made it to the kitchen. Sherm put on some tea. While he did that Issei asked Saber about the one he saw in red. Saber had an angry look on her face and asked you describe someone who I despise with every fiber of my being. The Saber card glowed red hot, but Issei was the only one who saw this and suddenly his eyes changed green. He looked at Saber and said it's someone personal isn't it? Family. She flinches. Bingo. Issei puts his hand on hers and says look I don't know why you hate this person and frankly I don't care, but what I do know is that family is always there for each other. No matter what, a child needs love to grow, they want a family that cares for them, and you make it sound like you couldn't give a care less if your own child was abandoned. Would you do that to a child, just abandon it to die? If you did then you don't deserve the right to be king. The Saber card stopped glowing, and Issei's eyes returned to brown before he shook his head a little to clear his mind. Saber and Sherm, he placed the tea on the table, were shocked at this declaration and didn't know what to say after that statement. Issei saw the look and said I'm actually a third child. My father told me about mom giving birth and having 2 miscarriages before me. A boy and girl. I would have had older siblings, but they died before they even had a chance. Mom and dad prayed at a shrine and asked for a child, and so I was born. They named me after the shrine and loved me ever since. I'm happy to have such a great family. He cried a little before wiping the tears away. Sherm and Saber saw this. Sherm can somewhat understand since he was an only child and lost his only family, his old man. Saber, on the other hand, never gave her child the time of day. She didn't give her son love or attention, she had her duties as king and tossed all feelings away. All of them were enjoying the tea until the power went out, causing Saber to summon her sword in preparation. Sherm, there's a servant here. I sense its presence. Sherm was shocked and asked where is the servant? Saber pointed outside in the backyard, but they're not moving, just waiting. Issei's hand flexed like it was holding a weapon in his hand. The image of a blood-red spear appeared in his mind and vanished. Issei ran outside and saw the servant waiting for him. A blue-haired man with light blue armor and said man had a blood-red spear. Issei's eyes widened as he said the name of the Gabolg. He looked at the servant and a memory of the man appeared in his mind, along with a woman with long purple hair and wielded 2 spears that were similar to the one the man had. The Lancer card appeared in his hand and everyone from the house in Kuchulainen saw this and smirked. Include, Lancer. The card turned into 2 blood-red spears and Issei's eyes changed red. It's been a while my pupil. How are you? Everyone was shocked at the female voice that came out of Issei. Saber thought he was another master of the Holy Grail War but instead possessed a card instead. Gu smirked and readied his spear. Good to see you again master. Never thought I would see you appear in a kid. It's kinda hilarious. Hahe's spear was embedded in the tree and made a small cut on his cheek, causing his laughter to end. The red eyes narrows and readies the next one. Don't insult my master. Remember your place dog. Issei ran and skillfully batted away Lancer's spear and lunges right at him. It became a clash of blades, spear versus spear. The two became blurs of red and blue. Saber and Sherm could barely keep up with them. Is this really a battle between servants? Saber nodded and observed the boy who was using the spear with ease. Is it because of the card or the spirit within the card? The blue warrior stopped and had a look of irritation on his face. What do you mean? I can still fight. A scowl appeared and then sighs. My master is a bit of a coward and has ordered me back. Let's put a pin in this. Oh, and master, take good care of the kid. Issei smiles and waves goodbye and Lancer disappears. Issei looked back at Sherm and Saber. I know you have many questions, but I believe it's best if we discuss them inside. Also, invite that child at the door and her servant as well. The voice called out, there's no need, we let ourselves in. Rin and Archer appeared behind Sherm and Saber, shocking them of their presence. Issei's body collapsed on the ground, alerting all of them. A groan was heard, and Issei picked himself up and felt like he ran a marathon. Issei saw that everyone was looking at him and noticed, that's the guy that tried to kill me. Rin, Sherm, and Saber looked at Archer, who huffed in irritation and looked away. The Lancer, Archer, and Saber card glowed red before 4 figures appeared before them. Issei knew their names immediately: Scottish, Atalanta, Mordred, and Suzuka. What are you guys doing out and how do I know your names? The girls looked at him, and Mordred walked right up to him and hugged him out of the blue, surprising almost everyone except Issei's servants. Thank you, Issei. Your words were truly kind and pure, thank you. She blushed before leaning into him, but a hand pulled her back. An angry cat was yelling, I was the first one summoned, so I get first. Besides, he likes cat girls rather than fox girls. Suzuka growled and got behind Issei and put her tail in his hands. Not true, master. Do you like cat or fox girls better? Issei couldn't say a word until Scottish clapped her hands to get their attention. Now. I'm sure we have a few guests we need to attend to and answer a few questions. Sherm, make some more tea and bring out some snacks. This will be a long night. Sherm could only nod as he went to prepare the snacks, and Archer followed him to help. Rin has a smirk and said he has a harem. This like a soap opera. Saber nods as well as she watches her son fight with a fox and cat girl. Unknown to them, a purple-haired woman, a big brown giant, and a blonde woman with features that put even Ria's, Akeno, and Tamamo to shame, watched a boy struggle against the clingy women. The purple girl and giant left to see their master, and the blonde says a powerful queen deserves a powerful king. Become stronger, my love. She then vanished from sight. Scottish said, now you probably have many questions, but first let me explain the situation he is in. Issei has 7 cards that can summon different spirits, however the Lancer and Archer card only had myself and Atalanta. The others have 2 spirits, but Issei has to be in a situation they were in, or they contact him. Can he meet them? We were the ones who had a stronger reaction to him, so he instantly knew our names and was able to understand our powers. Still with us? Everyone nodded and Issei took over. From what I was able to deduce from the day I received the cards, they can show me their past, and also I can either summon them when needed or they can summon themselves. When they run low on energy, they return to the card in order to recharge themselves. How long I don't know. Rin and Sherm were surprised by the army he has, but by how mature he's acting and taking this predicament. Rin had to know, are you going to participate in the Holy Grail War? Archer interfered, he can't. He didn't summon a servant by normal means. Even though he has servants, he can't enter as one of the official servants since he has multiple. There can only be up to 7 masters and 7 servants. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. Sherm was surprised that he couldn't enter the war, but asked, how does the war work exactly? Saber answered for him, the 7 servants fight until only one stands. The last servant and their master can use the Holy Grail to make a wish. That is how the Grail comes out, by using the souls of the fallen servants and, sometimes, the masters. Rin added, you have to register for the war at the church. It's not abandoned and the priest in charge of it is the watcher of the war to make sure the rules are followed. Rin got up and said, it's best we go ahead and get you registered, Sherm. That way you can also ask for the rules for the war. Issei asked, can I come along? I would like to check it out, just for curiosity's sake. Sherm asked, don't you have work tomorrow? Issei shook his head, no, tomorrow's Saturday. We have the weekend off. Kodaman Church. Before they left the house, Issei asked his servants to go back into the cards so they wouldn't draw too much attention to them. They agreed and complied. That was until Atalanta snuck on the cheek from Issei. Mordred and Suzuka were furious, but Scottish had a curious grin on her face before disappearing back into the card. Rin, Sherm, and Issei went to the church. Saber had a coat to cover herself in order to hide herself from other servants. Inside of the church was a statue of God and a stained glass window behind it. Sherm and Rin were talking about the man who supervises the war, but Issei just looked at the statue and kneeled before it and said a small prayer, thanking him for granting the soul the power he was given. An image of a priest woman with a giant dragon appeared in his mind and switched to a griffin flying through the air with a pink-haired girl on its back. Issei blinked before he heard. Ah, fellow believer. And Rin, my little girl. Issei turned and saw a brown-haired man with a priest attire and noticed something on his left hand. Rin wanted to get this over with, so she said, I brought him here for his incompetence in Magicraft and for not knowing of the war. I gave him the main points of the war, but can you explain his position of a master? Issei agreed, indeed, I would also like to know about this war and what reason do these servants fight. Kirei Kodaman was surprised by the man and noticed something off about him. His eyes widened a little until he smirked and looked at Sherm. I'll cut to the chase. In this war, you have a stigma on your left hand. That is what helps you control your servant. However, once you run out of command seals they can run and go wherever they may please and make a contract with another master. Masters give power to the servant so they can be fully materialized and fight with their full power. It would seem you haven't unlocked your full strength, I hope Rin can help you with that. Rin scoffs before he continued. You can't just pass it on to anyone. The 7 masters for the war were chosen by a ritual because those 7 were chosen to fight in the war. Sherm was about to ask about Issei, but Issei stomped on his foot before he could ask. Issei asked instead, what does the Holy Grail do for the victors of the war? Money. Power. Status. Kirei smirked and extended his arms to the side and said anything to your heart's content. You could even go back in time and change your life. However, you must win the war in order to achieve the Grail. Kirei walked to the podium and asked Shermamiya, are you going to participate in the war? It would be a shame if someone unworthy were to claim it and harm others, correct? Sherm gasped, anyone could claim it. Kirei nodded, but only the servant can touch the Grail, not humans. The servants were brought by the Grail, and therefore only the servants could touch the Grail. Sherm looked down and thought about having the power to go back and change time. Issei thought of nothing, for he didn't wish for something like money or power. If he was still his old self, he probably would have his dream harem granted, but after the talk with his parents, he wished to be better for them and himself. Sherm looked at Kirei and said, I'll do it. Kirei smirked, excellent, I look forward to seeing your performance. And with that they left. Kirei saw them leave and turned to the woman watching them. Who do you think will win? The woman came out and looked at the door and smiles. The answer is simple. My lover and king. Kirei was shocked at the response, and the woman left him alone. Outside the church, Shiro and the others were outside. Saber still had her disguise on and was looking down the alley as if she saw something they couldn't. Sherm thanked Rin, but she brushed it off. Issei thought of his servants and the cards and wondered who could have sent them to him. Saber's eyes widened. Sherm, everyone. We need to leave now. A little voice carried out through the wind. Oh. Don't leave yet, we haven't had any fun yet. A little girl came out of the fog with a giant of a man behind her wielding a stone axe. The man growled at them, just itching to slice them up. Issei saw the girl and recognized her as the one who he saw this morning from the train. The girl curtsied and introduced herself. My name's Ilia von Isenburn. To meet you, big brother Sherm and Rin. Sherm was surprised and Issei asked, you know the kid? Sherm shook his head and couldn't recall ever meeting her. Ilia looked at Issei and her eyes widened with stars and said, you're the anomaly. The one with the cards. Issei was surprised and asked, how did you know? I never told you nor actually spoke with you. Ilia just smiles. I know a lot about the participants in the war. For example, that girl, Sakura, is a master as well. But enough of that. Time to die. Berserker. Kill the servant and get me the anomaly. Berserker roared and charged at them. Saber jumped into the fight and parried the sword while dodging the swings from the giant. Issei felt a power within him react to the fight and the image of the dragon appeared in front of him. Are you going to just stay back and watch or are you going to fight? Issei's mind spoke for him. I can't fight that. How am I supposed to go up against that thing? The dragon sighs in disappointment. I never thought my host would be such a coward. You have my power as well as other warriors and heroes inside of you and yet you refuse to fight. Issei was shocked, but the dragon continued, call my name. You know it. I've been with you ever since your birth. You're weak now, but with training you could possibly become stronger than my greatest host. Now shout my name. Issei looked at the fight and flexed his fists and shouted, boosted gear. The gauntlets appeared on his fists and Issei grabbed the saber card and shouted, include saber. Mordred. The last part was whispered so no one heard him. The sword appeared in his hand and it had a crimson aura to it. Rin, Ilia, Saber, Berserker and Sherm were shocked by this. Issei opened his eyes and one was green, but the other was brown. Issei had a smirk on his face and ran to the giant and swung his sword at him. Berserker swung and met his sword. The two clashed and Saber leapt into the fight and cut Berserker's sword arm, but it didn't faze him as he punched Saber with the other arm. Saber clutched her as it hit a sensitive spot on her. Issei met Berserker again and the gauntlet shouted, boost. 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 The sword glowed red with power and Issei swung the sword and cut off the sword arm of Berserker. He was about to charge again until a chain shot out and clashed with the sword, making Issei retreat. The figure descended and revealed to be a voluptuous woman with a blindfold and long pink hair and a revealing outfit. Ilia looked grateful and said, let's go. That's enough for one day. Hope to see you soon, anomaly. The giant disappeared and the woman looked solely at Issei before disappearing as well. Issei stood his ground and the gauntlet said reset. He collapsed but didn't hit the ground thanks to the sword for supporting him. Sherm checked on Saber while Rin walked to Issei and carried him, saying, you're one scary person, Issei. I hope we become good allies in battle. Issei just nodded as well and looked at the moon and said, let's win this war. Unknown to them, a woman from a temple smiles at the fight and prepares for the inevitable battle. Issei was in an arena where he saw 9 different gates. One was labeled as Lancer, Archer, Saber, Caster, Assassin, Rider, Berserker, and the last 2 showed a scale that was used to balance 2 objects and a flaming skull. Issei looked around and saw that a large dragon was in front of him. The dragon was large and red with green eyes. The dragon smiles and says, it's good to see you again, partner. How are you feeling after unlocking my power? Issei was taken by surprise and remembered the battle against Berserker, unlocking Drake's power and using Mordred's power. He looked back at Drake and said, thank you, partner. Looks like we'll be working together for a while. By the way, where am I? Drake laughed a bit and says, this is your inner world, or in other words your soul. The cards that you received in that package were able to connect with you. But what about those last 2, Avenger and Ruler? I never found those cards. Drake thought of this and said, perhaps they are within you and you haven't unlocked them yet. They must have connected to your soul automatically but have not awakened yet. I believe in order to awaken them, you must wake up the other classes. Right now you've only used Archer, Saber, and Lancer. By the way, they wish to speak with you, but you can only go into the gates one at a time. Choose the first. We'll discuss training later. For now, good luck. Issei went to the Archer gate and pushed it open. As he walked in, he noticed a forest and a battlefield were mixed, giving it a peaceful but memorial look. He heard someone running through the bushes. He quickly turned around and got tackled by Atalanta. The catgirl snuggled up to Issei and rubbed her head against his and purred like a kitten. It's so good to see you again. She looked at Issei's eyes and helped him up. The others are coming, so they should be here soon. Issei had a surprised face and asked others. Atalanta nodded and 2 more voices rang out. Atalanta. No naughty business unless you're in a room. A white-haired woman with a teddy bear on her shoulder came out and spoke to Atalanta like a mother scolding her child. A pair of hands wrapped around his waist and he turned to see a black-haired girl with red eyes and a general's uniform. She smiles and hugs Issei a little more tightly, thinking he would vanish from the spot. Issei noticed this, hugged her back. Issei was surprised by the number of spirits in the Archer gate. How are there 3 spirits here? I thought it was only you, Atalanta. Atalanta sheepishly rubbed the back of her head and said, well, funny story. We drew lots on who would be the first to reveal ourselves, and I won, so you were able to summon me first as your Archer. You can use the others too. In fact, we actually made a schedule for you so you can learn how to use the powers of each class. The white-haired one pulls out a sheet of paper that shows a brief schedule. Monday. Archer and Lancer. Tuesday. Saber and Caster. Wednesday. Assassin and Rider. Thursday. Berserker. Friday. Drake. Saturday. All-out fight. Sunday. Rest. Issei actually liked the schedule because it worked out well with his work schedule. So I presume, when I'm sleeping I'm coming here to train with you guys, or when I have time off. Atalanta nodded. Indeed. If you train here with us then you'll be able to get a better understanding fighting with our powers. By the way, the others want to tell you their names unless you know them already. Issei looked back at the girls and like a memory that was just remembered, he knew their names. The white-haired one looked at him and he said, Artemis, the goddess of the hunt. He looked at the red-eyes Archer. And you're Oda Nobunaga. They smile at him and Artemis runs and hugs his head into her dot. It took all of his willpower to not make a goofy face until Atalanta snuck in and hugged him as well. Issei enjoyed this embrace and remembered the other gates. This is nice, but I would like to meet everyone else. I promise to live up to the expectations and will not destroy the faith you've placed in me. The girl smiled and let him go. Issei was in front of the Saber gate and walked in. He saw a massive dojo with a large fighting arena on one side and a golden theater with shrines on the other side, surrounded by cherry blossom trees. He felt a blade connect to his neck and said, hey there Mishashi. How are you? He turned to see a pink-haired girl wearing a purple Japanese obi and a blonde voluptuous woman with green eyes and a red and white dress. She looked like a queen from a foreign country. A cheerful voice rang out, Issei. He turned and got tackled by Suzuka, and the fox girl enjoyed running her cheeks on his face, then listened to his heartbeat. Mordred and a dark-skinned woman wearing a white veil on her head and wielded a rainbow sword. You're Attila, and the blonde green eyes woman without the armor is Nero, correct? The two smile and hug him with warmth and love. Nero jumps into the air and says, it's great to finally meet you, master. I'm truly happy to meet you. Attila smiles, me too. It's an honor to finally see you face to face. Miyamoto huffed and turned away from the group. Issei got out of the hug and snuck behind Miyamoto and noticed her near the lake. He lifts his hand and smacks her round butt. Yeah. She leapt and almost fell into the lake if Issei didn't catch her. She was an inch away from the water. Miyamoto saw the look in his eyes and glared. Issei, don't you dare do what I think you're thinking. Issei just had an innocent look and said, do what, drop you? He let go a little and she yelled but was stopped. Issei pulls her up and gives her a big hug. Ha 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 ha. I'm sorry. Forgive me. She was furious but couldn't stay mad after seeing the innocent look on his face. Fine. But do that again and you'll receive a sword through your ass. Issei smirked and at her nose, making her blush and run to the dojo. You're such a jerk. Ha. She cried with tears coming out of her eyes. He turns to the others and asked too much. Attila nodded, Nero and Mordred did a so-so motion. He felt a tug pulling him out, realizing this he turned back to them and said I'll come back. I promise. Mordred put a hand on his shoulder and said we know. See you soon. He vanished into thin air. He opened his eyes and saw a vast frozen wasteland, but strangely, he didn't feel cold. As he turned around he saw a giant castle that reached the sky. A red spear flew and impales the ground directly in front of him. A certain purple-haired woman jumped off the castle and landed on the tip of the spear before spinning off of it and pulled it out of the ice. She looks at him and smiles. It's good to see you again my pupil and my love. She closes in but suddenly backs away from a purple spear embedding the ground where Skathich was. She chid when a woman with hair come out of nowhere and pulled Issei close to her and called her spear. It flew into her hand and she positioned herself between her and Skathich, but Issei was swiped out of Brynhilder's hands and into another white-haired woman with a white cloak on her and a long nagatina. The three had a glaring match until a pink blur stopped down and grabbed Issei from the clingy women. Sorry old hags, but the dragon is mine. She looks at Issei and leans into him while flying, but spears were flying in the air and tried to hit Elizabeth. Ah. Hey watch it. You almost hit my lover. Her tail swished like an angry lizard and stopped when Issei was feeling her tail. He grabbed it like a lifeline, but didn't know what he was doing to her as he held on. She blushed and tried to get her tail away. Wait, stop. I'm very sensitive in that area. Especially at the tip of my tail. She couldn't finish her sentence as the tip was being rubbed. Ah. She flew down and Issei just realized this and on instinct put his fingers in his mouth. And whistled. Out of nowhere a fire dragon flew out of the sky and caught both him and Elizabeth. The dragon descended to the ground and let them down. It nuzzles Issei with its nose and Issei rubbed it with his hand. Thank you, fire goddess Quetzalcoatl. Skathich and the others were shocked until they saw the fire dragon become a woman with Amazonian tribal attire and hugged Issei with so much strength Issei started to see the light. Skathich was surprised and asked how are you here? I thought servants of other classes couldn't enter the other worlds unless Issei summons you there. He also didn't use Rider's power, so again, how are you here? Issei looked at the Amazon woman and had a look of interest. Quetzalcoatl smiled at Issei and said you actually did awaken the Rider card at the church. Remember the statue? Issei remembered the statue and how he prayed to it. So that's what worked. He looked at her and asked is it possible to go to the Rider's gate? I would like to meet everyone. Quetzalcoatl looks at the Lancers and they nodded in reply. A tornado of fire surrounded both of them and they vanished. Skathich looks at the spot then turns to the other Lancers and says we need to train him in becoming even stronger. He can pick things up quickly as long as he has the will to push himself. Let's make sure he remembers he isn't fighting alone. He has us. All of us. The others nodded and prepared themselves to train him. The last gate was the Rider Gate. Quetzalcoatl brought him to a forest where a great pyramid was and Issei noticed a barbecue with a few more ladies. A woman with red hair wearing a crown and a white cape. A samurai woman with a long ponytail and a katana on her side. A voluptuous blonde woman with a little white-haired child talking with a voluptuous pink-haired woman, both of them wore pirate outfits. The last one was a priest girl with long purple hair and a staff that seemed familiar with him. Issei walked over and asked if he could have some of the meat. Quetzalcoatl smiles and offers said meat. As he sits down the child sits on his lap and looks at him with puppy eyes. Issei couldn't say no and complied. As he rubbed her head he looked at the girls. It's good to see all of you Ushawakameru, Budias, and you too Little Mary, Pirate Queen Francis Drake, and Saint Martha. I do hope we can get along and learn together. He bows and Martha goes up to him and hugs him. I know you miss your friend, but we will guide you. Don't lose faith in your family. We're more than that. Whenever you're worried or scared talk to us and we'll work it out together as a team. Issei didn't know that his eyes were leaking a kind tear from hearing the heartfelt words come from her. For the longest time he always wanted to feel this warmth of friends, but never had it at school, but now with the girls and Sherm, along with Sakura, Rin, and Taiga. He's truly happy and will make sure this feeling stays. They all hug him and, unfortunately he feels he is waking up. It's time for me to wake up. Please teach me all that you know and in return, I promise to be a good friend. He smiles until he vanished from the gate. They smile as he leaves and nodded to each other as they looked at the spot he left in. We'll work hard too, Issei. Our king of domination. Issei's bedroom. Issei woke up and noticed that Saber was awake and right next to him. Saber saw him awake and said good you're awake. We have some good news so it probably best you freshen up first and come to the dining room. Issei did feel like taking a shower, so he got up and noticed it was the evening of Saturday. Surprised by this, he quickly moved to the shower and bathed until Hen was clean as a whistle. Luckily, he remembered to bring a change of clothes, so after he got changed he walked to the dining area where Sherm, Rin, Saber, and Sakura. Sakura had a sheepish look on her face and said, "You probably already know this, but I'm the last master. Former master of caster, and caster is the master of assassin. Unfortunately, I'm no longer a master, so I can't be of any help." Issei looked at Sherm, and he placed a bowl of katsudon in front of him. "Here, you need your strength." Issei nodded and ate while gesturing for Sakura to continue. Sakura saw this and began her story. "My brother Shinji went missing just 2 weeks ago, and I haven't heard from him since. He just vanished into thin air. I summoned Caster but was hoping for Rider, but I couldn't. Caster was kind at first and summoned another servant to serve as assassin. I don't recognize him, but he was very kind and called me Little Lily. Sadly, just yesterday, everything changed." Flashback: Sakura was on the ground by magic, and Caster was using a binding spell on her, while assassin was forced to watch this happen in front of him. Caster pulled out a dagger that had a zigzag shape and pulsed with magic. "This is my noble phantasm, Rule Breaker. It allows me to sever magic and contracts, for example." She stabbed Sakura, but she didn't feel pain. As soon as it was pulled out of her, she tried to use a command seal, but noticed they were gone. Looking back at Caster, she smiles wickedly and says, "You're no longer my master. I don't need you to get what I want." She turns to assassin. "As for you, I can't have you hate me, so I'll just do this." She puts him to sleep. "As for you, you can go to your little friends, but as for me, I'll be at a special temple. Oh, and I have a new servant to obey me. She was difficult, but she kneeled before me." She opens a portal and looks at Sakura one last time before saying, "I don't know where your scumbag of a brother is. He is either dead or a master of another servant. If you wish to find me, come to Raidu Temple. Farewell." She walks into the portal and assassin floats into the air and follows her through. The portal then closed. Sakura was able to move and knew she needed help, so she went to her one true friend who was always there for her. Sherm. Then flashback: "After that, I came here and told them everything. Please forgive me for deceiving you." Issei put a hand on her shoulder and said, "I forgive you." He looks at Sherm and mouths, "Thank you." Issei smiles and lets Sakura go. Rin took over then. "Alright, now we know where Caster, Assassin, and I believe Rider is probably there. Ilia has Berserker and Lancer is still a mystery to us. For now, we should focus on the temple. But why would Caster even go there? It doesn't make any sense." Saber materialized her sword. "We should attack at once." Sherm stops her hold on Saber. "We don't know anything about them, so it's best we come up with a strategy." Saber had enough of this coddling her like she was a weak maiden. "Sherm, servants were made to fight. I'm already fully healed and ready to fight. Do you think you can win this war without fighting? Do you?" Sherm had an angry look on his face. "I'm sorry, Saber, but you're not going, and that's final. Don't make me use one of my commands." Saber had a shocked face and glared at him. "Sherm, you're a coward." Sherm, "Finish this fight. I'm not arguing with you anymore about this. Issei, can you handle the dishes?" Issei was almost done with his meal and gave a thumbs up before returning to his meal. Issei didn't say anything because he knew Saber was right, as was Sherm. There were too many risks, but he had a plan tonight. Sakura and Rin shared a room while Sherm got ready for bed. Saber was in the dojo looking at the moon through the window, and her choice was clear. "Sorry, Sherm, but I'm not running away from my dream." Issei was getting the dishes put away and had a feeling he wasn't going to be alone on this late mission. The evening, Saber woke up and made sure to be quiet as possible as she snuck out of the inn. She got outside and walked quietly to the entrance and failed to notice a figure watching her. The figure decided to go his way to the temple. Alright, the northern entrance is the most obvious choice and probably guarded by a servant, so it's best to go through true south side. The figure went around to the back of the temple and started to climb the trees to gain ground. He got to the top and grabbed binoculars he borrowed from Rin. There were skeleton warriors and no servants in sight. Option A. Sneak inside and avoid the guards. Or option B. Fight my way in. He decided option A. Operation Shadow Walker is underway. The assassin card glowed faintly as if responding to this idea. He saw a platform just a few feet away from him and tried to calculate the distance. He walked back to the bottom of the branch and tested it before running on it before jumping at the tip of the branch. He was getting close and grabbed onto the platform. Then pulled himself up. Huff. 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 Wow. That completes my workout for the day. He saw a spot where there were few guards. He slid down and needed a disguise, so he grabbed the first thing he found, a cardboard box. Sighing to himself, he went all Metal Gear and used the box to get past the skeletons. Luckily, they were too stupid to notice a moving box, and said figure made his way to the door. He got out of his disguise and made his way in. He found many rooms and tried to be quiet as possible. The card glowed faintly as a shadow mist formed around him. Issei noticed this and saw the card react to him. He pulls it out and says include assassin. The mist covers him and dispersed quickly. He was now covered in a black cloak with a skull mask on his face. He took off the mask and noticed his right arm has a stump of bandages on it. He shrugged this off and made his way to one of the rooms. He saw a paper that had the words Holy Grail on them. He walked to the paper and looked it over. So that's her plan. He pulls out a phone and takes a few pictures before putting it away. Step 1 complete. Now for step 2, getting out of there. He looked out the door and didn't see anyone there. He held his breath as he made his way to the courtyard and noticed that the skeletons are gone. He saw his chance and ran to the wall, but stopped as two nails attacked him from the sky. A figure flew out of the night sky and landed on her legs like a cat. It was Ryder. How amusing you are, Anomaly. Caster came out and smiles at him. Assassin is taking care of Saber, but you should prove to be more challenging. So come at us, Issei Haidu. Ryder and Caster charged at him and Issei didn't see many options before him and charged as well. This would be a fight under the moonlight. Thanks for watching this video. If you really enjoy this video, like, subscribe and comment down below and turn on that bell notification. Don't forget to support and follow Nefarious Doctor for writing that awesome fanfic, and also make sure to comment on this story, link in the description. See you in the next video. Goodbye.